The Brothers Karamazov, Book 3, Chapter 11. Now, this chapter has two settings, but it really ends up feeling like three settings. The first is, again, a back alley, dark alley conversation between Dimitri and Alyosha. The second scene is Alyosha's return to the monastery and Father Zosima's cell. And the third scene is him outside Zosima's cell at the monastery, praying and then reading the note from Lise. Now, the conversation with Dimitri. Alyosha comes out depressed, discouraged, about to cry. He runs into Dimitri in a dark alley, and he actually begins to cry. He's so distraught over the evil, the foolishness, the lack of truth and love that he wants to characterize his life. He doesn't see in the lives of anyone he cares about. Everyone's life is falling apart. And then Dimitri tells him that he sees no reason to be alive, and he was just contemplating suicide when Alyosha happened upon him. And so Alyosha describes for minutes in great detail what has just happened in the room with he, Katerina, and Grushenka, and in a disturbing emotional reaction. Remember when we first met Dimitri in that very first chapter of the description of Dimitri, that was how he was described, that his emotions do not fit the situation, and so it is not fitting or right for someone who has just thrown their father and kicked him in the face, ran out of the house. Before that, pushed over his foster father, and now hears about the woman he supposedly loves and the woman that he is engaged to, involved in a bitter, immature struggle. The appropriate emotional note to play is not one of laughter, and yet he dies laughing. He's shaking uncontrollably. He's laughing so hard. So Alyosha tries to talk some sense into him and talks about a way forward, a way out of this mess, how to proceed. And then Dostoevsky, I think, masterfully put something in here that you could just read through and not see as an important comment at the time, but it is important later. And so I want to read it so that we'll remember when this is paid off later in the book. Dimitri speaking in this dark alley to his brother. "Stay, Alexei, one more confession to you alone," cried Dimitri, suddenly turning back. "Look at me. Look at me well. You see here, there's terrible disgrace in store for me." As he said "here," Dimitri struck his chest with his fist with a strange air, as though the dishonor lay precisely on his chest, in some spot, in a pocket, perhaps, or hanging around his neck. So that comment will pay off later. Dimitri says, "Look here, pay attention," and then beats his chest, and the narrator says, almost as if the thing he was talking about was actually located on his chest or around his neck. So Alyosha leaves this manic conversation with his weirdo brother, and he's just exhausted. This has been a long day, full of conversations and actions that are shameful and hard to hear. Alyosha makes his way to Zosima's cell, and the other monks give Alyosha word that Zosima just has a few hours left. And so there couldn't be a bigger contrast between the scene that Alyosha has left and the scene that he goes to. He has just spent an hour earlier this evening at the bedside of his father, recovering from the face kick from Dimitri, and his father wakes up and has these crazy declarations about Grushenka. He's just left his suicidal, wild, mad-talking brother, and now he, by contrast, goes to the peaceful yet mournful cell of Zosima to watch him die. It is again reaffirmed that Alyosha should spend his life outside of the monastery, not to pursue pleasure or fame or fortune, but to do the work of a Christian monk, but outside the walls of the cell. That in other words, his family is so messed up that the world needs him much more outside of the monastery than inside of the monastery. So, though they're contrasting the conversation with Dimitri and the bedside of Zosima, though they're contrasting by chaos and peace, they are the same in that they're both heavy, taxing, emotional tolls. And so Alyosha takes his emotions to God through prayer, and so he tries to go through his normal nighttime prayer routine to pray for joy, to not pray for circumstances to be changed, but rather for joy despite the circumstances, to love. And as he's praying, he feels the note from Madame Holikov, and so he opens it, and it's from little young Lise. Now you remember that in Book 2, chapters 3 and 4, Zosima is outside counseling the women, and in chapter 3 he counsels 5 women, and they're all serious, grave, heavy matters. And then by contrast, in chapter 4 of Book 2, he counsels Madame Holikov, and we said that all of hers are sort of pseudo-important issues, that she's more aristocratic, and all of her arguments don't seem to come from her soul, but rather she's just parroting unbelievers' arguments. Well, that child who was said to be in some sort of physical need had been healed by Zosima, and we saw that she laughed and giggled seeing Alyosha standing next to Zosima in his religious garb. She seems like an immature child, really, who giggles whenever there is a serious moment. Well, she's written a love letter to Alyosha now, and Alyosha, by contrast to these deep conversations with Dimitri and the devastating turn of events where his father in the faith has only a few hours left to live, by contrast, he sees the tender, childish, immature declaration of love by Lise, and it works. It immediately lightens his spirit, and Alyosha can now fall into a deep sleep. So that completes part 1, books 1, 2, and 3. And so now we begin book 2, part 4.